This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org. Welcome to another edition of the Maui Causes Citizens Initiative television show here on Akaku. You know, the opinions expressed on this show are not those of the management. Akaku does not produce this show. Todd Swan and myself are the culpable parties. If you like what you hear on this show, reach us. If you don't like what you hear on this show, then maybe perhaps you would do well to question some of what your understandings are, because we're here to present to you ideas and opinions and facts that are not expressed in the local media, that are not part of what the Maui News presents. You don't hear them on the TV stations because we don't have any here on Maui. And so there is this vacuum of information. And we're here because we care, and we are spending our time and energy to bring you information, facts, and truth on an ongoing basis. We ask your support. If you please go to Maui Causes, check us out there. We are a crowd-funded media production initiative supporting not-for-profit progressive causes here in Maui County. We exist by your good graces, and we thank you for that. Part of that message is that, you know, things are not really what they seem. There is a subtext, there is a structure to the political and economic forces here in Hawaii that are explicitly different than any state in the United States. And that is a result of the history of these islands for the past 140, 170 years. You know, lands were taken over, power was taken away from an existing culture. And it was consolidated under the plantation system, further consolidated under the military system during World War II, and turned over to a handful of corporate interests that originally may have even been local. But they're not local anymore, folks. Those companies are not run by local people. Those companies are seeking profits on your back. The reason your kids can't afford to stay living on Maui is because of those corporations. And those corporations are funding and piloting a political machine here on these islands that is exploiting every opportunity for their own profits, not for your best interest. They're not necessarily evil people. They're not doing it explicitly to harm you, but you are getting harmed in the process because their goal is to make money. Their goal is not intended to support the sustainable lifestyle here on these islands, and that's why your kids can't afford to live here. And so what do we do about this? We make noise, we take to the streets when it's necessary, and weekly we take to the airwaves here on Akaku and online. And we'll continue to do so because change needs to come. You see it on the mainland. It's quite evident that there's way too much money in politics. Well, there's way too much money in politics here in Maui County, too. 2 years ago, Monsanto and Dow spent over $8 million in Maui County to try and convince you to vote in their favor on the GM moratorium. And they've spent even more money under the table. Why do you think a mayor of a county would lie publicly about GMOs in dog food are going to sprout in your backyard because your dog brought them there and you fed them to your dog and your dog took a poop in your backyard and now that's going to sprout and that's going to be a GMO seed and they're going to have to come and arrest you? He said that. He made that up. Now, why would an elected public official do something like that? For the money. And that needs to change. The structure of our government here is flawed. The process here is flawed. And it's only your attention and your participation that's going to make a difference. We have the opportunity. 2 years ago, this community lit a fire, and that fire has been burning and growing. And that fire is in a local community who has been exploited and unrepresented for far, far too long. We see it in public hearings that are suddenly well populated. Used to be nobody went, and the county government and the forces that be just did whatever the heck they wanted. Well, for the past 2 years, that's been changing. And we've had a number of important successes, a number of important construction projects, development projects that were deeply flawed and completely inappropriate for the locations and the populations that they were going to get plopped into because somebody off the island wanted to make money. And the community has stood up to those now. More and more, and some of them are coming. I think it's a rush. It's like a gold rush going on, you know, that they're trying to push these bad initiatives through before we make these changes that are coming in this election. We have candidates who can make a difference. For the first time ever, we have a full slate of candidates who represent you, who represent your children, and the real future of Maui County. Not the profits that are going to go to union bosses, not the profits that are going to go to politicians, and not the profits that are going to go to off-island corporations that don't live here, don't breathe the air, don't drink the water, don't have kids here. You have kids here. You drink the water. You breathe the air. You swim in the ocean. And you need to protect those things because they are at risk. We have candidates that represent your best interests, and you need to participate in the process. One of those candidates is with us today. Thank you for weathering my little opening remarks. I'm so happy to have you here. This is Trinette FURTADO, who is running for county council and is a long-standing activist here in Maui County. You grew up here.
Born and raised, Lahaina side, right behind Pioneer Mill.
So, and you see what's going on.
Many changes. I mean, you know, not just within my lifetime, but really, as you were saying earlier, within these last 2 years. And change is always a, you know, it's
icky.
It's anxious,
it's icky.
you know,
it makes people very nervous.
It does. It makes people very nervous, and for both good and bad reasons. And what I've seen consistently, even in all this turmoil, is very good. You know, I mean, for a lot, especially during the primary, you know, a lot of key races where some great people really should have won if there was more involvement, if there was more participation, as in voting.
That is the bottom line.
Yes. I mean, you know, we had, especially for the upcountry House rep race, that was an absolute disappointment. I mean, there were many of us, obviously, because that is district voting. Right. Many of us that really would have loved to have voted in that race, and I bet you we would have seen an overwhelming outcome for the first time challenger, Tiare Lawrence. And
well, Tiare did very well.
She did, but you know, just so small, 300, what, 70 votes, 370. I mean, you know, to come that close, and then look at the numbers, you know, absentee mail-in, walk-in voting, day of polling, and, you know, and really see that of all of the registered voters that we have on Maui, such a small percentage voted. And then, you know, I've been talking to people since then, you know, in my going door to door and doing community events, and And it's sad to hear that many people knew about it, but just don't vote in the primary. They wait till the general, with no really good, sane reason as to why. I don't know, maybe it's inconvenient, I mean, so I think, okay, what needs to happen? We need to make this a little more convenient for people. So, when you go to get your DMV, I mean, yes, it's great that we have early walk-in voting and registration. I think when you go to renew your DMV, your license, that's voting right there.
Registration,
and you opt out, but you are automatically registered, and that follows you. None of this. Okay, now you got to, unless you move completely out of the district, notices are sent some way. For the government that we want representation from, to ensure we're getting representation.
Well, and it's to presuppose that people participate. Now it presupposes people don't want to participate, and nothing happens. If you presuppose that people are entitled and obligated, you make that part of the culture of your people, that you are obligated to participate in this. And voter registration attached to driver's license registration is a perfect vehicle for that.
Well, and just being informed, some people are very, not only is the process of registering somewhat daunting, but, just going to the polls or doing it absentee or, there's, some people are just overwhelmed by the information that they need to do this, I mean, because there are people that take it quite seriously, and for whatever reason, I mean, they don't have access to the internet or print media or TV, and they don't have as much information on the candidates that are running, and so when they go to the polling place, here they're looking at a ballot, and sometimes people choose the name at the top because it's the first one, or they choose, especially with OHA races, the more Hawaiian of the names, which sometimes does not work. And some just kind of, it's a random kind of a thing unless they got a little bit of information on it. And and I think that the government from the top down can do a little bit better job of having that space. I mean, available for our community groups to step in and say, hey, yeah, we'd like to, encourage everybody to come. I mean, make that available so that, the people that really want to be involved can be involved in whatever way, shape, manner that they, that they're able to, because it's discouraging to tell somebody and for that person to hear that the way their voice, the way they give their leo is not adequate, and we shouldn't be doing that because every leo is adequate. Some people cannot speak as eloquently as others.
But they deserve the right and the means to have that speech.
Definitely.
So, the recent additions, and things are, slowly improving, kicking and screaming, it seems, by the county council to improve things. But, for instance, you can now, submit testimony by the phone during county council sessions. And it'd be nice, we have the video technology as demonstrated here at Akaku, that it could actually be a video process. So that people can be, fully represented in who they are as individuals when they are presenting to the county council. It's meaningful.
It is. And, I think it's wonderful that Akaku provides that opportunity for those who cannot come to the council chambers to see what is going on in real time because, there are people maybe who have sent others there in their stead to speak for them or, have sent in testimony or it is an issue that is concerns them very much, but they just can't get there. I'm very grateful that Akaku provides that coverage. And, I'd like to see, and the county, I mean, I don't know how we can do this. We have phone-in testimony. I'd like the ability to have videoed in testimony. So wherever you are in your house, in the library, you get on, whether it's through FaceTime, whether it's through a secure WebEx connection, something, so that you can offer it from where you are. People, the council can see you, everyone can hear you, and you're having your say without actually being there.
Yeah, and those kinds of that's a democratization of the process. That gives the process over to everyone equally. And that is something that is deeply resisted by the powers that be, because they like control. They like being able to advertise the day before a hearing is going to take place and then hold the hearing at a really inopportune time in a tiny little space, because they don't want the public to actually come in and give testimony. They don't want to hear from the public because they know the public is going to criticize them for the project and the process that they're involved in. Well,
and the very fact that, it's such a late notice kind of a thing, I mean, on all fronts, when that kind of situation is created or happens, how can you expect people to not be upset? And it creates this environment where, perhaps it is able to, you are able to kind of deflect because that is going on, like in a wag the dog sort of thing, I mean, yes, you come there for a public meeting, but if this situation here is created, well, hey, I have my say, whoa, okay, that's going on, all right, meeting's over, ways to that even further frustrate people, and there's, you can do very little to change the whole outcome, but it requires thought. Yeah, it requires thought of someone else. I mean, and this is not a new thing. You think of societies across the world where they gather in huge meeting houses and everyone has a say. I mean, that's this kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying we have to have a huge meeting house, or some kind of giant round table.
Well, but the web is that. That's exactly what the web is. And, it is viable to make that work in that fashion.
Mm-hmm. And we need that. I mean, what we've seen, especially over these last few years, as more and more people are engaged in social media, as the ability to access that has become easier. It no longer takes a bunch of clicks and, move the thing here. I mean, now for people who don't have very much experience with posting or boosting, they can easily do that, and not have to go through those steps. And so the way information is transferred, and the transportation of it happens so quickly these days, that sometimes it's at a detriment, I mean, as we saw with former Mayor Billy Kenoi and the planning party. Now, I mean, there's it goes out on the web, and the person who does it, oh my goodness, I mean, and really within a matter of seconds, you can hit the post and you can hit the delete, but someone has already seen it.
Right.
And either they've seen it and screenshotted it, right, or, I mean, they've seen it and shared it, so the immediacy of what goes on within the internet and social media, I think, is a huge energy that we're seeing now with our revolution. I mean, people that are going beyond, okay, yeah, we can't have Bernie Sanders as a candidate. Now what do we do? What do we do with that energy, with that passion, with that need for change? Because it's got to change, as we see, from the presidential debates, that had just happened. I mean, oh my goodness, would you call that a debate? I wouldn't.
It's a circus act.
It was silly. I mean, and what was sad was that it was so silly, but so indicative of the greater malaise, the greater apathy of sorts, that this is what it has come to, a sensationalized like TV show, rather than an actual discourse on, on what really is plaguing us. I mean, homelessness, I mean, hunger, care for our elderly, our infrastructure, our water delivery system. I mean, all of these things are very important. But hey, let's watch the two candidates for President of the United States kind of excuse me and hem and haw over each other, and never give anything tangible. I mean, if they can't do it, then we need to do it, and we can.
Well, they set the model for, the local political machine, and the local political machine is not rising above, hasn't risen above a low bar in a very long time. It's well established that the county council rarely really gets anything done of any importance. The important issues go by the wayside. They commission a study, they spend county money doing something, they learn a couple of things, but then they don't do anything. They don't do anything with that information. And it's, the council separate from the county government. The county government has department heads that have no experience running their departments. The political process allows the mayor to simply, give those jobs away to friends of his, and he's done so. We have people that have no experience whatsoever in their jobs.
And sadly, we have people under them that have vast amounts of experience.
And are stifled by their boss.
And they're not acknowledged in any way. They're not valued. They're not supported. And, and again, when I look at that as an extension of some departments where people are just like, oh, what is going on? And it's like, well, these people work for a county government that, for all intents and purposes, they know there is no room for advancement.
Right.
How can you expect somebody to come to a place and give their best if they know in their heart that they're not going to be acknowledged? And I don't mean, acknowledge as in I get the big bank, but just acknowledge in a manner that as they grow, as they learn, as they become more professional, hey, you are stepping up, you're stepping forward. But this can't happen when you have popularly determined department heads, and the staff that's there, it's like, well, what are we, chopped liver? We've been doing this job, we know this job. And, and then the disconnect between, as you said, county governance and the council. We can't have our chair and the mayor not having a good, even just in conversation, not having a good rapport, because what kinds of things are not happening that should be happening?
All the good things are not
happening. And what
happening.
Kinds of things are happening that shouldn't be happening?
Right. Well, what's left, when the good things fall by the wayside, the bad things take over. And the projects that are driven by money, get the forefront because they're being driven. Everything else just languishes. So the good stuff languishes, the bad stuff moves forward because people are being paid to move it forward.
Well, it's when we look at the issues that we have, the things that are going and just growing over the years, the houseless, the unsheltered, that population, that demographic growing, I hear consistently, and so I know it's a concern of everyone.
Everybody.
What do we do about our unsheltered population? And then I'm asked to answer it in 2 minutes, right? And so I think, well, Jesus, our incumbents some of them have had 6, maybe 8, some multiple 20, 30 years, I guess. And in 2 minutes, I'm supposed to solve a problem that has been steadily growing because, I would say, even in small part, to our incumbent council.
Yeah.
Whatever, the movement, sludgy, I don't care. But, if I've got it in 2 minutes, holy Jesus, you better vote me in right now. There are people who have not had it in 6 years.
Well, but there is no incentive for them to have a solution. They're perfectly happy treading water and letting the existing system persist. And that's what I love about you, is that that doesn't suit you. The existing system, you have to try.
You have to try.
Right. And it is, it's a core of how we want, as a community, our government to function and represent our needs and desires. Because clearly it's being driven by off-island interests. And so the imperative is for people like you, the hope is for people like you who have stepped forward, you and the other candidates, to be able to go in as a block and be able to change the way that the county is run. And the issues, there's lots of issues to be dealt with, but there's a core fundamental function that is dysfunction in our existing system, and it needs to be scrubbed clean, and it needs to be revitalized with people who do have a connection to what's important.
Well, another frequently asked question I get is, what can one, if you got into council, what could one council member do?
Right.
You know, and to me, that question speaks at several different levels. First, that you believe no matter what, only one Pono person could possibly get in. Wrong. Two, you know, that already there is this this disconnect of, you know, that question, what can one person do?
A lot.
Exactly, and we see examples
one
of that
person changes
throughout
the world.
history.
Sure.
You know, and not even, sometimes not even with a bang, but a whimper, you know. And
even if you're there to inspire other people to come forward.
Exactly.
I mean, and that's you know, we do have a couple people on the county council that have been doing good work. Ellie Cochran and Don Guzman have been doing good work, and they really have been an inspiration to the community to come forward. They didn't have a broad knowledge when they first went into that job, you know, but they went into the job with an open mind and an open heart. And one of the fundamental differences between those two and the other county council members that are in place is that they knew that they didn't have all the answers or all the time to do the research. And they knew and respected the fact, and they continue to respect the fact, that unless you're doing your own independent research, you're not getting real answers. If you're asking somebody who's, you know, vested in the process what the answer is, and they're telling you, and you're asking them because they made donations to your candidacy, and you have a rapport and a relationship with them because they're doing business in the county, you're not going to get a real answer from them. You're going to get an answer that supports what they are trying to do. And if what they're trying to do is not in the best interests of the county, then there they are, incumbent county council people who are not acting in the best interest of the county. They are acting in the best interest of some corporate executive who they play golf with or they share lunch with.
Or, you know, I mean, as I've, you know, kind of seen, it looks like in many cases that because it's an accepted, I don't want to say behavior, but the climate is an accepted climate.
Right.
You know, it's always happened. As many people, that's the way it's done.
Yes.
That's the way things go. That's the way it's done.
Give me
you know,
chicken
and so
skin.
that's easy to shirk off fighting. Standing. I mean, and not even fighting as in, oh, let's throw blows, but I mean really just saying, hey, you know what? Actually, that's not good.
Right.
And we need to take it back and talk about it more, or you need to just take it back, I mean, and leave it wherever you brought it from. But, you know, I mean, those things need to happen. And in this particular climate, you know, this is why people are like, oh, what can you do? You know, I mean, that's, I think, where that question comes. What could you do? Well, you know what? If there are a bunch of me's that think the same way, you know, I will stand alone. I have, and I tell you, it is chicken, you know, chicken skin, shaky hand, and you wanna run, but you don't because it's right.
There's more to our show in just a moment. This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org.
Sometimes it's people that you least expect. Yeah. You know, and maybe you shake their hand at a meeting, or you answer their question at a forum in passing, and make the deepest connections with people who then just go all out for you. And those kinds of things wouldn't be present if there wasn't that space for it. You know, I mean, if we didn't create the space for ourselves.
And if you weren't true to who you are. That's the thing. That's what's important, and I think that's what's lacking in our existing system, is that it's populated, you know, mostly by people who don't have the political will to stand up and do what is right, to do what they know is right. They do what's easy, and they do what they're paid to do. if they are corrupt. Some of them are corrupt. You got two different types. You got some that are corrupt, and you got some that just don't have a set of balls.
But then you have others that are and it's funny because I consider it sitting on a rounded top fence, I mean, it's comfy enough, so you're not going to get off it, right? So your bum's not hurting, but it's rounded enough that you could go this way, you could go that way, but it's okay, and I'm comfy and I'm settled right here, I mean, so how do we change that culture? How do we change that climate, that that wahi, because it is very much a place, a space. I mean, it may not be just that. I mean, people say, "Oh, this is the county building." Yeah, it's a county building.
It's an energy, though.
But who's the county?
It's an energy.
We're
field.
the county.
Absolutely, it is a palpable and tangible thing. There is, when you go into give testimony at the county council, there is an air of something that goes beyond the individuals in the room. There is a feeling that you are part of an entire group of people, part of everyone's lives, and that substantive issues are at play, and that you can make a difference. But we have to have unity. We have to have a common vision of leadership in the county council government for that to ever happen. Right now, they're completely fragmented. The county council members, they don't like each other.
Yeah.
They're not working together. They all have different interests, and they're all split. And that is not working for anybody.
Yeah, it's not working for them because look at the amount of time they have to spend together. I mean, you may not like the person, but oh my goodness, you have to be able to, sit through all these things together. And then when you don't like the people that you're hanging out with, I mean, no wonder you end up with decisions that are very strange. You need that kind of unity, and it doesn't send a good message to the rest of us.
Right.
I mean, if there's disunity there is disunity that comes from there, and it's worrisome. I mean, to anybody that pays attention to what's going on in the council, it's worrisome. I mean, I don't need my council members to be kanikapila in the garage every weekend with each other, but I do want to know that when they're looking at issues that are affecting all of us, that it's not okay, I'm going to win this one and you're not going to win this one. There's I win, you lose. That it really is we both win and we both can win. I mean, what are we thinking of here? Is the bottom line the money we're going to get today? Or is the bottom line, what is this entire infrastructure going to do for my child and my child's child and, 7 generations down the line?
Well, and the money interests are always a factor. And I submit that that's why there is such a fractioned council in existence, because each one individually has been reached by a different group of people, by a different political and economic interest. And so they're working for that particular interest. And another member is working for that particular interest. And none of them, for few of them, are working for this
particular interest.
That's it. That's exactly it. And that's the ethic that needs to change. And we have the opportunity in this election cycle to make that change, because there are, for the first time, a number of candidates that reflect the people's needs, that reflect your children's and your grandchildren's needs, so that they can afford to live here and stay here and be a part of your family here in Maui County. And that's a huge opportunity that we've never seen before.
I mean, not only are there more people getting involved and speaking up, but the spectrum of people, and I mean age, even if we want to go by profession, economic status, the people that are getting involved and the way they're getting involved, it's wonderful. Yep. It's an exciting thing, I never know what kind of kokua or kaka'o I'm going to get from somebody when they're like, I'm going to help you, and it turns out to be something that is absolutely exquisite and done with full aloha, and so I'd commented on a post, today after a sine wave, that the things that I've learned are that shakas are ubiquitous. Everybody knows them, and if they don't know them, they make an attempt to do them. And some people really need a shaka that early in the morning. And when it comes to it, people return aloha, right? You give aloha, you get aloha. Aloha mai, aloha aku, right? What is given is returned. And that's what we need to have. Governance, it is this, aloha mai, aloha aku. Not aloha mai, and then nothing comes back to us. I mean, and it's not a huge thing. It doesn't require a bunch of ordinances or regulations or laws passed. It's just a very simple change of mind and heart. I mean, to remember that, and and so it's funny because this whole campaigning. I tell my friends, I mean, I don't even have a comfort zone anymore. I think that split, way down the road. So there are many.
Exposed. I mean,
totally.
You're exposed.
Absolutely. Even in the store when you've got your glasses on and hair up in a bun and you just, throwing some galoshes on, you're exposed. People will tap you out in line and say, thank you, or, oh, I saw you on TV, or, something like that. But within that, are moments of absolute grace. I mean, in times when it seems so crazy and it's like, why am I doing this? Because, as you'd mentioned earlier, money's a giant factor in campaigning. And so, that's not my thing to ask for that, because I have been raised and I operate on this system of, if I have it, it's yours. You want it, I don't use it, have it. If I have plenty, if I have bounty, if I have food, come my house, eat, and take a bunch home.
Sure.
So asking for donations, I mean, these are big things for me, not just for me personally,
it's not easy to do.
But I want to say even culturally, because that's not what Kanaka do. We don't ask for money, because money is this, who makes the value in it? Right. There's value in the āina. There's value in the vai, there's value in our kalo. There's value in us, and so, throughout it all have been, frustrating moments, anxious moments, and I joke with my friends and those close to me, I keep trying to find my zen, and it really is about being able to find for yourself, even if it's taking 5-10 seconds, to just, in that breath that you're taking between, I got this thing and that thing to do, to see the moment, and in that moment I have been able to not only expand my mind, hearing something, learning something, but expand my heart, learning about someone, getting to know someone, being introduced to someone, having them meet me. An acknowledgement, again, this aloha mai, aloha aku.
The humanity, yeah, sure. And it's that energy that, I'm so thankful to have the opportunity that you can bring that kind of energy with you into the county council, because it will revitalize, it will serve to revitalize the process from the core, and from that energy of balance, of understanding, of caring, and the hard work that you put in. I see how hard how much time and energy you're putting in. You were active before you started this campaign, and you're still active in the community, and you're campaigning, and being a mom, and and having a family life as well. It's daunting. It's not easy. And I feel your fire, and very much appreciate and know that the county will get the biggest bang for its buck by giving you that position as county council. I don't see anybody who's going to work harder than you for the total well-being and balance of this county.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
I try very hard not to speak on things that I don't know anything about. And I tell people, and I have been able to do this my entire life, that if I don't know something when we meet, the next time we meet, I will know it. And not only will I know it, I will have worn it, I got in it, I smelled it, I will know it.
And it is a job that entails a willingness to focus in on the details. And that's, again, that's the difference, because if you're not willing to do your own research, if you're not really willing to understand what the issues are, then you are willing to let other people tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And you can't have it both ways. Either, and I know that you do the homework, you do the hard work. That needs to get done for the benefit of everybody, and that's the value of someone like you as a candidate. That's the value of someone like you on Maui's County Council, because I know you're willing to do the hard work and make the tough decisions, even if it's not a popular decision, which sometimes has to happen for the overall benefit. That's what we'll get from you, and we need that.
I hope to not stand alone, when people say, oh, you're out in front, and I don't, yes, okay, I'm willing to do that, but not so far out in front that when I turn back,
there's nobody
I've got to reach further for you, when we do it, it's a kako thing. When it comes to what are county issues, or, what's county domain, what's state domain, the Oluwalu shoreline hardening issue was actually a State Department of Transportation decision that was made on another island, for our island, for our community. And really, if not for the efforts of those that stuck it out and camped and, signs, and I really just continued to put that awareness out, it would have gone on. It seems like for all intents and purposes it was going to go on, and there's the disconnect between state and county, with a strong county council, it wouldn't have to be just one or two council members that go and visit the site and, it would be the council coming out strongly and saying, look, we need to do something about this. Already, on normal days, our traffic is affected,
right, because
we need a bigger road, right. So instead of waiting for the conversation to come to them to start the conversation, right. We see that a lot with airport expansion, that continues to rear its ugly head every 5-10 years, and in some guise of, no, it's just safety, but you look at the length of the airport runway, you look at all of these different things, and that's State Airports Division making a decision for Maui County.
Right.
And when you look at their larger map, you have to wonder, 580 some odd acres are being purchased or acquired from a private landowner, 40 some odd acres are being acquired from A&B. There's plans to redirect on a highway to close off the road to the heliport. All of these decisions without community input.
Right.
And then have a notice to hold a meeting the very next day, with large tables, 4 seats at a table, no one can pack, why not all seats? If this is just public, is just going to hear this, it's informational, what was the need for all these tables? All of these little things to me,
right,
that, actively make it hard for the public to be there. So I looked at the sign-in sheet for especially the airport one, thinking, well, they're going to say later on, we had a series of public meetings. Nobody came. I looked at the sheet, and seriously, there were only like 42 names on it. Mm-hmm. That room was packed. Now, the amount of people in that room, will that be reflected on those papers that they will furnish as, legal and proper proof?
Right.
No.
Right.
So many people, we don't know how many actual people go and don't sign into those things. Yet those things are furnished as proof as, oh, well, nobody cared.
Right.
And lots of people care. We heard from many people who have been working on this issue for a long time in this community, and those people's voices need to continue to be heard. Just one example.
Well, and when the county council, just treads water and doesn't really move on anything, those are the kind of situations that result. Somebody else comes in and makes the decision
and tells
for
us
them.
what to do.
And because they're not interested in a transparent process, they're just interested in getting a job done, then it doesn't. Our needs aren't met.
Yes.
Our needs are not considered, and our needs are not met as a community.
Exactly. And further, when, I hear, and whether it's tongue-in-cheek kind of a thing or just jokingly that, yes, your first year in office is working, but your second year in office is campaigning, to me, that's wrong. I mean, if you're going to only work 1 year, you only should get paid 1 year. If you're going to spend the second year campaigning just so you can run in the next election, what kind of work are you giving us?
No.
I mean, you're not giving us your best work. Maybe you gave us your best work in the first year, but now you're going to kind of focus on, campaign war chest or making more connections to get more endorsements. I mean, if that is how, the general idea is, well, goodness, no wonder a lot of things end up not happening, happening at the last minute. Would the purchase of Hamakualoa had gone through had it not been an election year? I wonder about that. I mean, I honestly and seriously wonder about that. That's not my thing. If I'm going to be working for a paycheck, then pay me. If I'm not working, then don't pay me. I'm not going to be collecting a check because I sit in a building in a certain seat, and have an office up there. I mean, we need to be doing things. And we need to be doing things for our people while we're in there. And if we're not, then we should not be in there.
Yeah, sure. What else has this process revealed to you? I mean, district voting, I think, is a huge issue. You are greatly affected by having to campaign and spend money across the entire island, though you are officially representing just one district.
Yeah, it really is. It's problematic because, again, it comes down to money. When you are running in a general, race, as county races currently are, it's not just Maui, and it's not just parts of Maui, Lahaina, Kihei. I mean, it's Molokai, it's Lanai. It's looking at, okay, how am I going to go over there? Am I going to go over there? What's the cost of that? How many people can I hit? And it really becomes, sadly, a numbers game, right, and less about getting to know the people. And that's sad, because if I'm going to go over there, then I really do want to take the time to just hear what's going on. I very rarely get to those islands, and so when I do, I want to know what's happening. And with district voting, that would give, seriously, the people whose district it is, when they vote now, regardless of whether or not they've chosen their person, their representative, the rest of the island's votes kind of chime in, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
And this is why we see some lingering incumbents from time to time, because they overwhelmingly get the votes from Central Maui.
Right.
And yes, Central Maui is a huge district, but Central Maui should vote for Central Maui.
And the needs of Central Maui are very different than the needs of people in Lanai or Hana.
Yes.
But the power structure is based on union support. Central Maui is, hardworking, good-willed people for sure, but they also tend to be union members.
Well, if you're going to require the candidate to be a resident of that particular district, yet have to campaign county-wide, I mean, I see, yes, yes, you're representing that district, but to campaign county-wide is just, it's not that it's a waste, but again, people that are in Lahaina will not know anything about the community plan for Haiku.
No.
They'll not have any idea of what's going on with, say, the Haiku wells issue. Right. All of these different things. Likewise, people in Haiku, myself, I don't know what's going on. Actually, no, I do. Your average person. doesn't know what's going on with even Olowalu.
Right.
Maybe they have a passing knowledge because somebody shared a photo on Facebook.
Right.
But, I mean, yet we're supposed to be able to determine who your representative is going to be. When looking through all of the numbers for primaries, just using myself as an example, because I poured through those numbers, and there were 3 printouts: the absentee mail-ins, the walk-ins, and the day of the polling votes. Now, if we had district voting, I would have won. Mm-hmm. I did win our district.
Right.
To me, that says a lot, and the numbers were surprisingly, I mean, it was awesome to see the amount of people that came out in the district. And was that a holdover from the presidential preference poll where we saw a massive amount of people come out for that? Maybe, people were just we need change, we need to do it, we need to keep going. But the percentage of voters in Haiku, Makawao, and Paia, they were very encouraging when I saw that. And so I absolutely encourage all of you, again, who voted during the primary to come out for the general. And if you didn't vote in the primary, to please come out for the general, because not only are you voting on the President of the United States this year, but you are voting on people who will represent you in the state house, in the Senate, in the U.S. House and Senate, and here in the county of Maui, and actually throughout many of the counties here in Hawaii. Kauai is also having its elections as well, but it requires you, and it requires your vote. Your voice is very important. If you look at numbers that we've had in previous elections, and you just need to look at the Trump-Clinton race now, numbers are very important. And let's not have them skewed by shady tactics. Let's make our voices heard. And we need to do this, and this is the year to do it, and
It is the year to do it. It really is it's kind of like our last opportunity. It feels like,
It should be our best opportunity. There are so many young people that are stepping up that, we're a little shy, but as they start finding their voice and the fact that their voice is accepted and the way they come to a situation or an issue is honored, they're getting their own power, their own mana, and I'm seeing that now with many of them turning up at planning commission meetings or wanting to be involved in what's going on with zoning changes. I mean, it's huge, so whenever I hear people in the press or, just in passing, denigrate, Kanaka, and they're like, they're just all on welfare, or they don't care, or they're lazy, I am hard-pressed to remind them of these young Kanaka that I've come to know, and I'm very, very proud of, but they don't know them, and they won't care about, what context these Oiwi and Opio are working in, but I'm very encouraged, and I'm happy because to me, that's the kind of examples I want for my 11-year-old, so when she's older, that she can be a good example and a good ancestor for those that come after her.
Well, you are an excellent role model. So if the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as is usually the case, then she's quite likely to quite be a powerhouse and a real positive force for the county council, as many of the young people in the community are. I think you're right, there is a cultural change taking place. And it's, when you look back at the history of the Kanaka people, it's kind of understandable, coming out of a feudal system where you kind of did have to keep your head down. If you, did something that, was an embarrassment to the royalty, you were dealt with. And so people did have this sense of humility where you had to, you have to be humble. And certainly the plantation system, dominating the culture since those days, took advantage of that same thing. So it's only now, that we're seeing a real sense of empowerment with the revitalization of the Hawaiian language, with, the immersion schools. One young person, you know, at a county council testimony, said, hey, you sent me to the immersion school. Now deal with me.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I am what you wanted, you know, so now what, you know, kind of a thing. And that's the thing, you know, is that it's not just that that humility of you know, being humble, being quiet during the time of the ali'i, but you know, also the complex relationships with the kaikaina, kaikuana relationship with an older, younger sibling of sorts, you know, kupuna to makua to keiki, you know, I mean, within that, and we still see that, you know, I mean, deference to our kupuna, because you know what, we have to give mad love and respect to those who continue to stay on this planet, you know, as rushed, as angry, as messy, as, you know, as frantic as it can be, you know, I mean, still our kupuna are here and they still love us, you know, so yeah, you know, Uncle might go off for a little bit, but right on, we let him go because that's what he gets. You know, this is what we give him. He needs to talk a little bit long time, right on, talk a little bit long time. But this is the way we can show him aloha, and for him, that's what he needs. He doesn't need a hug, he doesn't need people patting him on the back, but he does need people to listen. You know, and these are the things we have to be aware of and for, you know, when we speak to our kupuna, when we are gaining knowledge from others, you know, and I think if we can take even just a little bit of that kind of thinking and throw that in our governance, what a great thing that would be, you know?
Well, good things are afoot, and we're happy to be a part of that change, happy to be able to support people in the community being active and making those kinds of changes that are so dearly needed. Thanks to Trinette FURTADO for everything that you do for this community.
Sam.
Aloha. This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org.